Hello and welcome to the Villa Views Transfer Talk, episode 3. 3 episodes, 0 transfers. And is this the biggest failure that the Villa Views had in terms of segments so far? Worse than the Tea Brew, some might say.
I mean, the Tea Brew wasn't really a failure, was it? Because we left people wanting more with the Tea Brew, which is the way to be, isn't it? But yeah, Transfer Talk is literally a show where we talk about anything but transfers, pretty much.
I mean, we purposefully took a break last week just because there wasn't any transfer news, and we knew that if we took a break, we'd be able to talk about something the week after that. Turns out that's still not correct, and Villa 4 weeks on after the end of the season, even longer than that. We're still waiting for people to come in. We've got a couple to talk about leaving, obviously also wearing the Three Lions as well. We'll talk about Jack Grealish, Tyrone Mings. So there is a little bit of stuff to talk about surrounding the Villa. Dan, we always find something to talk about, whether it's DFS sofas or the England team. Thank you to all of you that are already joining the chat. We're live on. What are we live on? YouTube, on Twitter, on all sorts. So you can make your comments, get your comments in, and we'll read out as many as we can in the next half an hour or so. First off, though, Dan, how are you? You know, a couple of weeks gone. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I mean, you've obviously got your England jacket on, and on a day when England have probably brought out the 2 worst kits I think I've ever seen. But from speaking to you earlier, you actually like them, which I am quite surprised by, as I thought you were a bit of a kit connoisseur, but obviously not.
I was a bit surprised when I saw the kit launch this morning and everybody was down on them. I think that the white one the home one I wasn't totally in love with until I saw it with the number and the names on the back. And to me, that just reminds me of 1998, my first real kind of, like, I remember the back of 96, but not really. 98 was the first kind of tournament I remember as an 8-9-year-old. And to me, that brings back nostalgic memories. I really like it. Also, the blue top, I just don't see the problem with it. I think it looks quite smart. Again, it's a little bit of a throwback. And the training gear, I think, looks really good. So, yeah, I mean, I do seem to be the only one in the world that has that opinion. And you're right up the other end of the scale.
Yeah, I think it's the worst home shirt we've ever had. I'm not dead against the away shirt, but I think the home shirt's the worst we've ever had. It just looks like someone's taken a few bits from the 98 shirt, thrown up on it, and it's all just landed on there. I don't like the collar particularly. It reminds me a bit. Do you remember in The Simpsons when Homer Simpson's brother let him design a car? Yeah. That's what that shirt reminds me of. That was what I thought when I saw it. It's just a bizarre shirt, and I'm really surprised that you like it.
Yeah, I mean, the colour I'm not delighted about, and we can move on in a minute. But the colour's not the main thing to me. To me, it just reminds me of the innocence of being an 8, 9, 10-year-old football fan, and watching England. And like, you remember when I think it was 98 where we got to watch a bit of the World Cup in school, and
Yeah.
I remember watching it in like the music room, England, Tunisia, and games like that. And yeah, to me, I think it's more of a nostalgic thing. Maybe the shirt isn't the most beautiful thing in the world, but it does remind me of a simpler time. And if we do have a Euro 2021, then I will be buying that, and I will hopefully be buying it with Grealish 10 on the front and on the back, because Jack Grealish has made his he's not made his debut yet, but he's made his first call-up to the England team. Dan, it didn't come easy.
No.
We had to wait a little bit, but delighted for him, delighted for his family. A huge moment for his career.
Yeah, it's massive, and it's fully deserved as well. Like, I've seen a few people say that it's been tainted by the fact of what went before it, with Southgate not picking him initially. Obviously, Phillips ended up in the squad kind of against what Southgate had said a few years ago when Jack was playing in the Championship. So I can see why it's sour for a few, but we got there in the end, didn't we? And he fully deserves it for what he's done for Aston Villa over the last few years. He is a different class. He's a different type of player to anything England have got, and I'm convinced now that he's actually got himself to training. He's got himself to St George's Park, and Southgate's going to watch him in training. The other elite players are going to see him in training as well. I'm convinced that he'll make a name for himself and that he'll work his way into the team because he is that good. He's a special talent, and he fully deserves it. And like you say, just really pleased for him and really pleased for his family as well.
Yeah, big games as well. Iceland and Denmark. Iceland obviously on the Saturday, and then Denmark afterwards. So not easy fixtures. I mean, I'm still not totally enamoured with the Nations League and whatever it is as a concept, but they're competitive games. He's going to be wanting to get some minutes. He's not going to be happy just kind of being the bit part player or the call-up to make up the numbers. He's going to want to be playing alongside his mates Mings and Abraham, obviously in there as well. How much of a chance do you think he gets, considering it was a late call-up and he doesn't seem to be Southgate's favourite player right now?
I mean, he's coming in basically as a left-sided player, isn't he? That's what Southgate said. So with Rashford being out, there's only one left-sided player ahead of him. And if you think about football and substitutions and stuff, it's usually people in the front three that get substituted to try and change a game up. So he's got a decent chance of getting on the pitch, and I hope he does get on the pitch, and I hope we haven't got all this excitement now and Southgate then just leaves him on the bench for 2 games and we don't see him. I'm a bit confused by the Nations League as well because we got to the semi-final, didn't we, before, and we were up against Spain and Croatia in our actual group, and yet this year we seem to be up against Denmark and Iceland. So I'm a bit confused to how it's all worked. To be honest, I can't say I've kept up with it, but I'm looking forward to Saturday now, and obviously, hopefully, watching him pull on that England shirt because it does feel like something that Villa fans have been waiting for a long time. We all knew about Jack from a young age. We knew there was this special kid coming through. Obviously, he burst on the scene in 2015. I think it was with that game at Wembley against Liverpool. So he declared for England. Everyone's been waiting for it. I'm sure he's been waiting for it as well, just hoping it would come. And just when it didn't look like it was going to come, it took us by surprise at the weekend, and he's included. And as I say, I really, really think he'll go on and make a name for himself. And it's a good thing for Villa, and it's a great thing for him. And to be honest, I really don't think it affects the transfer speculation or anything around him with that. I just think it's a great moment for him, and it's a proud moment for the club as well and all the fans.
Yeah, that's what I was going to come on and say. Does this put him either in the shop window, or does it make him more attractive to Manchester United? But surely these Premier League clubs, they already know what they're getting with Grealish, right? You don't need to see him in an England shirt to know that he's a game-changing, dynamic midfielder that can do it in the centre or from the left.
The only thing he does is he puts Villa in a better position, to be honest, because if he comes on and runs the show, you're adding money to the fee, aren't you? You're then ticking another box saying this guy's an international footballer. Look what he can do on the international scene. So it can only be a good thing for Villa. I'm still in the camp where I think he's probably going to end up staying. Man U have bought in Van der Beek. It's difficult to say that they'll bring in both him and Grealish. Kind of mixed messages with Man U as to whether they're going to spend big or whether they're not. They've obviously still got the interest in Sancho as well. Definitely can't see them going for Sancho and Grealish. I'd be surprised to see them spend that amount of money. And I think Villa are going to hold out, ask for 70, 80 million. And at the moment, I don't see anyone paying that unless something drastically changes. I just don't see it. I could see him staying at Villa now for sure, but I've been wrong many, many, many times.
You have. I mean, we all have. A couple of comments coming in. Steve Webster, this is good and bad for us. If Jack forces his way in, his morale improves, but the vultures start to circle even more. Andy Brogan, Jack not going anywhere. And doing a Fulham, do you think his exclusion was personal by Southgate? I mean, to me, it just defied logic that Southgate couldn't put him in there. Do you think what's going on there? What's your opinion?
This is complete guesswork from me. I don't know anything. It's just me putting 2 and 2 together in that. I know Maddison's had an injury, but him, Maddison and Dele Alli all on holiday together at a time when, Southgate's very straight-laced, isn't he? So he won't like seeing players jet off on lads' holiday when the COVID stuff's going on. And this is me putting 2 and 2 together. We don't really have an attacking number 10 / left-sided player. There's not many of them in the squad. All 3 of them, you would say, a number 10's Ali's been in the squad before. Maddison's been in the squad before. I know he's had an injury, but none of them are in there. So it kind of just feels like I think there's something about him that Southgate's not sure of. And the only thing I can think of is that it's off the pitch because it can't be on the pitch because he's that good. You look at all his stats up against everyone else, and he's top of everything. He was one of the best players in the Premier League last season in a struggling side. So it has to be off the pitch, or something happened when Southgate was under 21s manager, and he's carried that over, and he's just not being sure of him. But now Jack's in the squad. That's the most important thing, because he can now go there and he can prove to Southgate, look, I belong here. I've changed from perhaps the kid that you knew in the 21. So just getting him in that squad, that's the biggest step for me, because he'll go on and show his class now without a doubt. And I don't see it being a bad thing for Villa at all. I don't see how it can be a bad thing for Villa, because, like you said, clubs know about him already. I don't think the vultures are going to circle like that last comment, because people will already be after him, regardless of whether he's in the England squad or not, and it puts Villa in a strong position.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the transfers in and out of Villa Park, we should also say congratulations to Tyrone Mings on another call-up. Obviously, Mings made a couple of appearances in 2019. Feels an awful long time ago now, but he'll be hoping, I guess, to start in these games.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, I was thinking he was going to be left back, because there was no left back in the squad. Yeah. You'd imagine Maitland-Niles from Arsenal will get the nod at left back now, having done well in the Community Shield at left wing back for them at the weekend. So you'd imagine he's now going to be the left back for the games. But yeah, I was thinking Mings was going to be lining up at left back, because he looked the most likely candidate. But I think with Maguire's absence, Maguire's obviously the left centre back for England usually, I'm pretty certain Mings will start. So again, another good thing for Villa and another good thing for Tyrone Mings. But you forget the journey that he's made, really, because we're all so fascinated by the Jack journey. For Mings to have had consistent call-ups, like he was only his first call-up a year ago, wasn't it? And he barely played much Premier League football for Bournemouth. He'd done great for us in the Championship. His journey's incredible as well. And when was the last time Villa had two players in the England squad? It must have been in the days of Milner, Young and Downing. It was a long time ago, it feels, anyway.
Yeah, and Barry in there as well. Yeah. It was a golden age, that Martin O'Neill time, before it all came crashing down around us, when we thought the only way was up and Champions League was just around the corner. Championship was around the corner. Indeed. All right, well, let's get to the action at Villa Park, or the lack of action, I should say. One player leaving, James Bree, has joined Luton on a permanent deal. Dan, only 22 still. Feels like James Bree's been around forever, never really got a shot at Villa, only played 28 senior games. On loan at Ipswich, then on loan at Luton, and now he joins the Kenilworth Road side permanently. Bit of a sad one, really, because we just never saw the best of him.
Yeah, I mean, he basically came in at a time when we had this Villa engine, which we're now still dismantling, where we just bought players without thinking about where they were going to fit. Bree was one of them. You could argue Hogan was one of them. Lansbury, you could say, has never really got going at Villa either. So it's just sums up the Villa engine, to be fair, from Steve Round's time, doesn't it? Probably from that time. I think Connor's now the only one that's in and around the first team that's still there, to my knowledge and memory. So it just never worked out for Bree. Villa's a difficult place to play. It was when he was in and around the first team. It was quite hostile. Fans were getting a bit on Bruce's back. It didn't look like it was going to happen. Then Elmo came in for 1 million, who was just simply always going to play at right back under Bruce. Hutton was still knocking around as well. He'd had a bit of a renaissance, and he played a few games at centre back for us in our last season in the Championship, didn't he? And he acquitted himself pretty well, but it's just never ever really happened for him. But that's what happens when you have a bit of a thoughtless transfer policy like we did back then. And wish him all the best. He's never let Villa down, never complained, low maintenance. It just hasn't worked out. But at 22, he's still got a chance to build himself back up and get himself up to the top tier.
Yeah, he's had a lot of senior experience now with Ipswich and Luton, as I say. Gaz Oakes agrees with you. Bree was a better centre-back, and I think that was one of his last appearances when Bruce put him in, said he was one of the best players on the park, and then never played him again. And like you say, that kind of goes to sum up the thoughtless policies that we've been dealing with in the last few years. Hopefully, those are behind us now. So wishing James Bree all the best as he continues his career at Luton. And now we don't have anything else to talk about.
Yeah, that's ended.
because we're still waiting. So the first question before we get into the kind of rumours, Dan, would be: are you nervous?
Nah, not really. I get that people are like, where you would have expected something by now. If I'd have had to have put money on it, I would have said definitely there'd have been a couple of players in by now, because we finished 17th and it's clear we need to do business to improve on that. But still, there's not a ton going on. We're probably one of the few teams actually that hasn't signed anyone. But hopefully, like we said, we talked about reckless transfer policies just then. Looks like we're being a bit more careful this time and trying to get it right. And we've probably had targets that we thought we could get that have since proved harder to get. Unfortunately, when you're 17th in the Premier League, and you've got ambition, because we do have ambition and we've got ambitious owners, but players might not necessarily be interested because we're not the draw that we once were. We've got to work our way back up to there, and it's going to take time. It's going to be on a season by season basis, but neck on the line, I think we'll get a couple in by the end of the week. I think there'll be a couple done by the end of the week.
Kieran Murphy says Smith can't attract the players we need. And I hope I'm wrong in that. Do you put any stock in that, or do you just think it's a get right now?
I think he's pretty well respected in the football world, and if you look at the 2 remits he's had since he's been at Villa, he's got us up and he's kept us up. So he's ticked the 2 boxes straight away. I think that's very disrespectful to Dean Smith. If I'm being honest, I don't think that's the case at all. And although I'm saying we might not be able to go in for the high level player that we want to get, we're still attractive to an awful lot of players. It's just making sure you get the right characters and the right people in. I'd expect a couple of people to come in from the Championship, two, maybe even 3, by the end of the window. And you're going to have to buy a couple of players like that because, like I say, you can't just go and pluck world-class players from everywhere. We're not in a place to do that at the moment, but I'd expect a couple of high-profile signings by the end of the window, and I'd also think that we'd probably beat our transfer record as well. But the window's till October the 5th, so we've got plenty of time.
One of those players from the Championship that we've been linked with today, Dan, is Callum Wilson, 28-year-old forward from Bournemouth. Obviously played in the Premier League last year, 8 goals, 35 appearances. He'll have half an eye on the England squad for Euro 2021. I think I don't know whether he's come out and said it, but it seems to be fairly public knowledge that he wants to carry on his career in the Premier League right now. Do you put any stock in the rumours that Villa might be interested in someone like Wilson?
I don't think so at the moment. I wouldn't rule it out as being something that we wouldn't explore at some point, but I can see Wilson rocking up at Newcastle, to be honest, somewhere like that. I just don't think he'll be someone that's on our radar. He'd probably cost 35-40 million for a 28-year-old, and I don't see us doing that, if I'm being honest. I've seen a few people have a pop at his record, but it's very, very difficult to get an out-and-out goal scorer in the Premier League nowadays, unless you are one of the big boys. And I think his record's pretty decent, to be fair. He's someone that struggled with injuries as well. I don't see it. That's my opinion, and that's just me, again, putting 2 and 2 together. I don't think he'll be someone that we are in for. I think getting a main striker in, I think it will come as a surprise. I think it will be someone that we don't expect. I don't expect us to go in for Callum Wilson.
Philly D says big no to Wilson. Aman Maroof, Watkins over Wilson. Dave F, Wilson a no for me, injury prone. Leo Bryan, Wilson is a great player, but is too injury prone. It's a huge gamble, isn't it? Like you say, for 35-40 million. Do you think, it's been well documented that Bournemouth are struggling financially, whether there'd be a cut price deal to be had there, or you think he's still going to command that kind of fee?
Bournemouth got some decent players that they could shift, to be fair, and get good money for. They won't want to lose the whole of their side, but I think he's one they'd probably fancy hanging on to if they can, because he would get you 20 plus in the Championship, in my opinion. I think he's one that might end up staying, but like you say, he's got England ambitions. Although he wouldn't be my first choice. I don't really get the fact of people completely turning their nose up at him. It's a bit snobbish in some ways, as if we were way too good for him, and I don't think we are. But he wouldn't be my preference, and as I say, I don't think at this moment in time he's someone that we're in for.
Kerry C, Mings was injury prone. Now look at him. Wilson wouldn't be a bad signing, but would need another striker to come in. Also, Brandon Harrington leads us on. Lads, tell me the situation about Watkins. Lads, he's double ladsed it, which, he definitely means that he's been serious there. The first ever transfer talk we did about a month ago now, Dan, I think Watkins was the top of the billing. We were quite excited about the Brentford youngster, relative youngster, I suppose, compared to us. Yeah, and he was one that obviously the Dean Smith links made complete sense. We still haven't seen him through the door at Villa Park. He was left out for their friendly today, as was Ben Rama, I believe, and obviously as well. Ivan Toney signed for Brentford as well this week. So, are we starting to see the cogs in motion and the Ollie Watkins deal edging ever closer?
I still think he'll sign. I'm not sure what the hold up is, but I think he'll sign, and I think he'll be one of the ones that's in by the end of the week, at the start of next week. I don't see us missing out on him. To be honest, there'll be something holding it up at the moment, because it's clear that that's been on the radar for a while, and it's clear that that's been something that's been in motion for a while. So there's something holding it up. At some point, I think there was one of the comments earlier about they'd rather have Watkins than Wilson. I don't think it's that kind of situation. Watkins will come in as someone who can play wide and up front, which is what we need. There's no way we don't sign a striker as well. Absolutely no chance. If Watkins comes in, unless something goes massively wrong, there's no way that he'll be coming in as the main striker. He'll be coming in as someone who can play wide and someone that can play up front in certain games and when required, if there's injuries and things like that. So Watkins will happen. I'm pretty confident of that one. I just think it's taken a lot longer than anyone would have anticipated.
If Villa only if Villa only signed 2 strikers and one of them's Watkins, are you happy with that as overall transfer business, or do we need reinforcements all across the board?
No, I think I'd be happy with that, because that's 2 extra people that we didn't have last season that could play up front. You can't do too much business all in one go. The squad seems in a relatively good place in terms of stability and in terms of being a happy camp again now and having a togetherness. If you bring in too many players, it unsettles that. I think the club won't want to cut their losses on Samatta at the moment. I think there'll be people there that still think that he can come good and do a job after a pre-season. You got £25 million striker coming back from injury as well, who's going to be available. I think someone that can play wide and play up front and a proper goal scorer. I think that's all we need. Personally, that's just my opinion. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think we can do with a couple of squad players, and we'll come on to talk about players like John Swift, Matt Cash. I think we could do with some general reinforcements, because it's going to be a tough season. It's going to be another long season, I would say, getting all the games fitted in before the Euros and making sure with a short pre-season we have a big enough squad to be able to cope. So I would look at expanding a bit, but striker is definitely the area. And if we walk away with 2 strikers that hit the ground running, I think that's absolutely key. Then we'll automatically be in a much stronger position than we were at the start of last season.
It's just so difficult, because if you think Watkins is probably going to cost somewhere between 20 and 25 million, that's someone who's only ever played in the Championship and below in this country. It's a hell of a lot of money. I think we'll make 2 big signings for big money, but I think that'll be an out-and-out goal scorer, and I think it'll probably be a central midfield player as well. They'll then be looking at people in the Championship like Watkins, like Matty Cash, to come in and supplement the squad and push for the first team. But even Cash will probably cost somewhere around £15 million as well. You don't spend £15 million on someone who's not going to play. We spent £1 or £2 million on Hotter to be a squad player last summer. You don't spend 15 million on someone to come in and sit on the bench. So they'll be keen to get players in that are going to be first team ready, and they're going to push those that are already in the first team, not someone to just sit on the bench, because we've got enough of players like that with the likes of Hotter and Lansbury. They're already there, aren't they? People that aren't going to get in the first team, but getting paid. I mean, Lansbury's on a very good wage, isn't he, for the amount of football that he plays? You don't want to be bringing people like that in. You want people to come in, hit the ground running, play, push the people that are already in the first team, or replace people that are already in the first team.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Matty Cash. He was mentioned a couple of times there, and we've had some conflicting comments so far. Ollie Williams, I think it was, I've lost it now, says he'd be a great upgrade at right back. But then Charlie Parkman, do not understand the Cash deal. If anything, left back is more of a priority than right back. So Matt Cash, 23 years old, Nottingham Forest right back, played in the Championship the last kind of 4 years. And like you say, Dan, would probably cost in the region of 12 to 15 million pounds. Do we need a right back? Were we not happy with Gilbert? What's the situation there, and why is Cash the target?
I mean, it wouldn't have been a position that I'd have picked out as being majorly weak. If I'm being honest, I quite like Gilbert. I know he can be a little bit erratic at times, but he's a player that I like, and I think Elmo still, for us at the level we're at, he's an able deputy. But maybe it's a case that they want to try and look to move Elmo on. I'd be surprised if they look to move Gilbert on, to be honest. But Cash has got a big reputation at the moment, and I think he was pretty close to joining Milan in January, if my memory serves me correctly. So, he's had interest from big teams, and there'd be other Premier League teams that would be sniffing around Cash as well. I mean, Lamouchi kind of reinvented him a little bit at Forest last season. He'd always been a midfield player, but then he decided when he came in that he was going to play him as a right back. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I've watched him play loads because I haven't. I kind of forgot about the Championship last year when we weren't in it, and didn't find myself watching it as much as I had done in years before. But I understand he's got a great engine. He's someone who's got good delivery, someone who'll work his socks off, and someone that would give a lot to the team, and someone that's improved a lot over the last few years and has perhaps still got another few echelons to go as well. So again, 12, 15 million, it sounds a lot, but in the modern day, it really isn't now. So I'm not against it, but if I'd have had to have said another left back or another right back, I'd probably have been the same and said we probably need another left back.
Yeah. Martin Heavey says Cash can play further up the field apparently as well, so could be versatile. A couple of comments saying that Gilbert could also play a little bit further up because of his crossing ability. So I guess it kind of comes back to that element of having reinforcement, strength in depth that we talked about needing in midfield across the back line as well. We've used Konsa as an emergency right back, and I don't think anybody was particularly happy with that, including Konsa. To have a bigger squad and a more versatile squad is going to be important for Villa this year.
Yeah, you got to trust them at the end of the day that they know what they're doing. I mean, the players that we've been linked with, they seem to me like players that Dean Smith would want, which was a criticism we had of the transfer policy a year ago. Cash and Watkins will be players that Smith would have been aware of, having been a Football League manager for a long time. So I think that's a good thing if Smith's getting in people he thinks he can improve, people he thinks will fit into the way he wants to play, because that's the thing as well. We've got to develop the way we want to play a little bit, because we were kind of one extreme or the other for most of the season. Then we kind of found a balance the last 4 games and managed to keep ourselves up. So Smith might want to tweak a few things and change a few things, and you never know. Someone like Cash at right back might suit what Smith wants to do this season more so than Elmo or Gilbert. So you got to think about things like that and just trust them that they're going to get it right this time.
Yeah, Rod Humble says Cash at 23 feels like the right kind of Villa. I am supportive. So yeah, will be interesting to see whether that one comes. It feels like it's quite close though, that one. Had a 10 million bid rejected according to reports. So it doesn't feel like it's too far away from potentially being one of the first signings through at Villa Park. Another young guy. Not that young anymore. John Swift, 25 years old, came through the ranks at Chelsea, played for Reading since 2017. Another one that we're linked with, Dan. This kind of box-to-box midfielder, the kind of guy that we talked about to add a little bit of competition in the midfield places. What do you make of the Swift links?
To be honest, I'm surprised he's still at Reading, because he was quite highly rated a few years ago, but yet he still manages to have found himself at Reading. Yet if anyone worth their salt in the Championship had come in for him for a decent fare, I really think Reading would have sold him. They strike me as a little bit of a selling club, so I'm a bit confused as to why he's still at Reading, to be honest, because he's been talked about for years. He kind of strikes me as someone that if we'd gone down, we might have made a move for, rather than someone that we'd get in now. Like if Jack ended up going and you got Swift in as a replacement, you wouldn't be massively happy, would you? You wouldn't think that was a long-term replacement at all. I'm not sure. I'm reserving judgment on that one. It's one that I can't really see, but it is a link that doesn't seem to go away. But I'm saying about getting a few Championship players and then getting in a couple of higher level players as well. You've got to be careful because if you get too many Championship players who are improving in the Premier League, it's no different to buying 3 people from Belgium and struggling like we did last season. Yeah,
2Cash 666. Are we the team that just picks the best talent from the Championship? And this is something that we've talked about throughout this little mini series, where if we shop too much from the place we don't really want to be, is that as dangerous as like you say, going to the leagues that aren't as well established as the Premier League, and we're going to end up with the same kind of issues. John Swift, like you say, nobody's picked him up as yet, which seems like an odd move. I don't know what the answer is really, because the links with the kind of bigger teams, the bigger players, seem to have died down a little bit. We'll come on to Martinez in a minute, but generally, we were talking about players from the Bundesliga previously. Weston McKennie as well as now got the Juventus. Ratsika, that seems to have fizzled out a little bit as well. So that to me is a little bit disappointing. Not necessarily concerning, but disappointing for sure.
I mean, McKennie, I think, is someone that we held an interest in, but there's a difference between holding an interest in someone and then making a move for them. Villa could have held an interest in McKennie, sounded him out, and then he comes back and says, well, look, I think Juve are interested. I'd rather go there. So Villa could have big ambitions, and I think we will have big ambitions, and I think we'll be looking at all kinds of players. We'll be looking at high level players that are playing in big leagues, and big players and people that are going to cost 30, 40 million. We'll be looking at them, but we will be looking at those championship ones as well. It's so difficult to get players in nowadays. I know I keep saying it, and I know people think it's a cop out, but that'll be the reason we haven't got anyone in yet, because it is difficult. It's not Football Manager, but someone like McKennie would have been a great signing, and it would have been a real statement for us. But if Juve want someone and we want someone, they ain't coming to Birmingham. That's a fact.
Yeah, well, that it seemed to be that it was Southampton that were interested, then Villa, and then Juventus kind of came out of nowhere as well. I've kind of heard that there might be a potential that Adidas were involved there in being a useful sell.
But there is things like that. It's like that's what I'm saying. It's not Football Manager. It's mad.
Yeah, I think that's to be true. The Adidas, that it would be a better fit commercially as well. Obviously, it's a great move for Weston McKennie. How much he'll play, it remains to be seen. But he's a good player, and he'll want to test himself at the highest level. So good luck to him. They're nailed on for another Italian title, and you get to play with Cristiano Ronaldo. So
yeah, you don't say no to that. You don't say no to that, do you?
Absolutely.
People want to play in the Champions League as well. That's the other thing. Like, if a player can go and play Champions League somewhere and experience that, they're going to do it.
Yeah, it's true. What about then another Champions League, former Champions League player, Edouard at Celtic, no longer has the Champions League as an option, but the chat seems to have gone a bit quiet there around the Celtic striker. Any word that might be in the offing, or do we think that one's petering out?
I don't know. I don't know, but it just feels like a convenient link to me. Like, Villa are after a striker. There's a striker doing well at Celtic. It just feels a bit convenient. I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest. I think Villa would be reluctant to spend the kind of money that Celtic want for him. But it's Celtic's prerogative, isn't it? It's like we're saying that Jack should cost a certain amount.
Right.
Celtic are going to say the same about their star man, so it will be a difficult one to get. But again, there'll be other teams in for him. I'm not sure again that's one that will happen, but wait and see, because things can change. Just because, as I said, if we're not in for someone right now, it doesn't mean we're not going to be in for them in the middle of September, at the end of September. When things are getting towards the end and the market's moving a bit quicker, things change.
Yeah, I think the frustration for fans is that we talked about that. It feels like we've talked about that for the last 3 or 4 years, even with the Bruce timings, that we were bringing in all our players even after the season had started. And there was no time to gel. I know this off season has been incredibly short and incredibly difficult. And I know it feels like a cliche at this point to say it's not Football Manager. Obviously, it's not Football Manager, and it's difficult. But at the same time, it does feel slower than years gone by, where we've been able to do business quicker, and we are seeing more teams getting their business done now. It does still feel slow. I think I'm more on the frustrated side than you are.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Chelsea, it's Football Manager at the moment, because they just seem to be buying whoever they want and doing whatever they want. But you know what?
Them, is it?
Money's not.
It's not just them. A few clubs are now doing their business, getting their guys signed.
No, but not like Chelsea though. I'm just using them as an example.
Yeah,
because it's different circumstances, because they they have got a bottomless pit. They didn't spend any money a year ago because they couldn't. They've got a lot of money available. Abramovich has really opened up the purse, hasn't he? He's given them a lot of money, and for them, when players play silly buggers and things like that, they can afford to pay it. If someone plays silly buggers with us, we've got to be a bit more frugal. We can't afford to. We haven't got the kind of money that Chelsea have got. So we're working in a different market, and we're working in different circumstances, because we have got money. But the club's had some difficulties with finances in the past, and they won't take those risks again, and they won't do anything that they don't 100% think is right.
Elliot Harris has just taken the comment right out of my mouth. Leeds, Dan, Leeds. Leeds are a much more level example there, where they're doing their business now. They're making some decent signings. It looks like we'll wait and see on those, because the proof is in the pudding. But they are getting their players through the door, and that's what we now need to see from Villa. I don't think it's unfair for fans to be a little bit frustrated at this stage. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now I think we should hopefully see some business this week. I know you've said you hope to see a couple done by the end of the week too, but I can understand the fans' frustration now when other clubs around us are starting to make their bids, like Eze as well to Palace is another one.
Yeah. I'm not saying there's no movement, because there is, and we're probably now one of the only ones that hasn't bought anyone. Man U, I don't think have yet, but they're obviously now very close on Van der Beek. Use Leeds as an example, but they bought in a striker. I suppose he's a Spain international, isn't he? How much was he? 30 million. It's still a risk. I mean, every signing's a risk, but he's not exactly. I don't think he was free scoring for Valencia last season. From what I saw, they've took a risk. But again, their director of football is Spanish, I believe. So we've got the links with certain clubs and things like that. We've only just brought our director of football, or sporting director, whatever they're called nowadays, in. So we're running a little bit behind schedule probably as well. Water's been at Leeds a few years now. He'd have been someone that was identified by him. He probably thought the moment he went there, if we go up, he might be someone I've got a contact with and that I can get in. It's just, every circumstance is different. I think we'll have 2 players in by the end of the week. That's what I think.
I mean, I'm sure we've said that the last couple of weeks as well, but I hope you're right. I do. And yeah, let's stay on the positive side. One more player, Dan, that we wanted to talk about, and again we spoke about him earlier in the summer, was Emiliano Martinez, the Arsenal goalkeeper. There's been more and more stories linking him away from the Emirates. Do you think Villa's a viable possibility for Martinez?
Yeah, I just think it's one of them where he obviously played for Arsenal at the weekend. He's done very, very well. And Arteta apparently has come out and said that Leno's the number one, and Martinez wouldn't be happy with that because he's 27. He's been at Arsenal a long time. He's been on loan at various clubs. I think he's ready to try and make himself a number one now, and he's got more chance of doing that at Villa than he has at Arsenal. It's clear that Villa want a goalkeeper, and it's clear that I think Martinez is someone that we are interested in, but he's owed various bits of money by Arsenal at the moment for the loyalty bonus or something. I think that he's owed. Money always plays a factor in these deals. They're severely weakening themselves if Leno's only just coming back from injury, and they then get rid of the backup as well. That feels quite risky to me. I think because his stock's quite high at the moment, I think they can probably ask for more than he's worth. Again, same as us setting a price for Grealish, they'll probably set a price that other people would look at and think's quite high. But it's clear that we want a goalkeeper with Premier League experience. I think Martinez is one of 2 that we're looking at. I'm not saying that the other goalkeeper is in the Premier League at the moment. He's just someone that's got Premier League experience. But again, I kind of get the impression we'd be happy to start the season with Steer and work to the end of September and trying to get a goalkeeper in and making sure we get the right one. So it'll be interesting, but I think it's clear that Martinez is someone that we want, and it's clear that we want a goalkeeper with Premier League experience to help, because there is a risk with Heaton and Steer on the injury front all the time. Yeah,
you are certainly right about that, and Villa haven't been the most stable when it comes to goalkeeping in the last couple of years. It was only a few years ago that we had 6 goalkeepers in a season or something mad like that.
It wasn't far off.
We need to stick away from that and get somebody in who can hopefully stay healthy and hopefully keep the balls out of the net. That'll be a nice change. All right. Anyone else, Dan, in a quick fire round that you want to mention that Villa might be linked with, or do you think might be a good purchase?
I think Chalobah might be one to keep an eye on at Watford, because I think he's someone that Dean Smith wanted before. When we're in the Championship, he ticks the box of having Premier League experience. I think he's probably someone that could come in and out of the side. He came through that Chelsea academy as well. I think he'd probably be one to keep an eye on as the window moves on. But that's the thing. Like, who are these primary targets? I think we can safely say Watkins and Cash are primary targets, but we know very little about who the other primary targets are. But he'd be one that I wouldn't be surprised to see through the door, Chalobah. And again, I think he'd be a sensible signing. Wouldn't break the bank. I think he's possibly only got 1 or 2 years left on his contract. He's played for England, hasn't he? Gareth Southgate's a massive fan of Chalobah. I think if Chalobah comes and plays every week in the Premier League, I think there's probably a place in and around the England squad for him, because Southgate rates him very, very highly. So he'd just be one personally that I would keep an eye on, because I know he's someone that we wanted before when we were in the Championship.
Do you think him over someone like Swift?
I'd probably pick him over Swift, but that's just me.
Interesting. Yeah, was he captain under Southgate in previous youth teams and that kind of thing?
Possibly. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I feel like they've got history there.
He loves him. Southgate rates him very, very highly, and he's someone who's obviously come through the Chelsea academy and was very, very highly rated there as well. I remember being quite surprised when he went to Watford. I think if Lampard had come in when Chalobah was breaking through, he'd have probably got a game for Chelsea, to be fair.
Yeah. Cy Sloan has a question. Dan, if Dean Smith starts slowly and potentially linked to not having the transfers in that maybe he wants, if Smith starts slowly, how long do you think he gets as a manager? Like, we talked about it last year and we were fully supportive of Smith. We wanted him to have another crack at it this year. But do you think, how long do you think the leash is in 2020-21?
I think it should be quite big, because, as I said earlier on in the show, he's achieved both the objectives that he was given. But you think about how many times it looked like we were in massive, massive trouble and he didn't get the bullet. If we're comfortable this season, he's obviously going nowhere. If we never find ourselves in the bottom three, Smith's going nowhere. I kind of feel like the pressure's off a little bit now. We've got another year of Premier League money, whichever way you look at it, that is a massive thing, getting that TV money every year. So I think his leash is quite big, to be honest. I think he'll be given a lot of leeway, and I think he should be as well. I still want him to be our manager long term, and I believe in Dean Smith. So I hope he doesn't find himself under any pressure at any point, and I hope we have a more comfortable season than we did last year.
Me too. Well, I think we can all agree that a more comfortable season would be just lovely.
Oh yeah.
Listen, if you want to test yourself as a top manager, Dan, there's only one place to do it: Fantasy Premier League, and the Villa View is going to have its own league set up this year. We've got a shiny new graphic. There it is.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna put this on our socials. Make sure you join the league using the code at the bottom there. Come and join our league. I've got to be honest with you, I am fairly rubbish at Fantasy Premier League. I mean, I obviously have a great team to start with, and then I drift off. And if I can get past the end of October, then usually it's a pretty successful season. But I'm going to try real hard this year for the good of the Villa View. You're a big Fantasy Premier League player as well, so you're the reason I'll put this one.
I mean, I used to be pretty good, but the last 3 or 4 years I've been absolutely terrible. Not had a good time with it over the last 3 or 4 years, but I'm looking to bounce back this year. I think a more comfortable season for Villa would help, because there's less worry going on in the football world. If Villa are doing okay, give me a bit more time. I don't know why I'm trying absolute rubbish here, because I spend loads of time on it, and I have done ever since I started doing it, and I've just had a really bad 3 or 4 years, but hopefully an improvement this time round.
Yeah, we're trying to get a few prizes as well along the way. Fingers crossed on that. Nothing confirmed just yet. So if you want to come play, the details are just in the bottom there. There.
Are you going to pull any strings and get any Bundesliga prizes?
I could probably steal a couple of things.
Yeah, do that.
Bundesliga prizes for Fantasy Premier League. I'm not sure it's the best and sell. Let's see what we can do and see if we can get any legitimate prizes first. And if not, then then maybe we'll work our magic.
Frankfurt tickets and a sleepover at your house for the winner. What a prize!
What a lovely time everyone would have there. Listen, you're not allowed. It's very hard to get here right now. We're supposed to be coming back in October, and I don't know if we're going to make it or not. It's a tricky time. 2Cash666 says, wonder if Tom's learnt much German. I actually gave an update in a team meeting today in German.
I'd have liked to have seen that.
It was literally 90 seconds long, but
okay.
I was quite impressed.
That's impressive. 90 seconds, that's impressive.
I don't know if we're still talking about my German or not at this stage. So let's call it a day there. Dan Bardell promises you 2 transfers by the end of the week. So, you know, if that doesn't happen, make sure you're all in his mentions. And I mean, we all hope that some Villa business is going to happen fairly soon. Are we going to be back next week? I think we probably should be at this stage, Dan.
Why not?
Yeah. All right, there you go. There's a lukewarm commitment from us that we'll be back next week, hopefully talking about some confirmed deals. But in the meantime, don't listen to all the ITKs. Just keep reading.
Don't listen to me.
Yeah, don't listen to Dan. Wait till the name's on the back of the shirt. Hopefully that'll be next week.